Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Rutland County Council Schools Forum meeting, Thursday the 15th of September. We're going to start our meeting today with a period of silent reflection to pay our respects to our late Queen. So if I could ask colleagues just to remain silent and reflect for the next minutes. Thank you. So that moves us on to welcome and apologies. So welcome everybody joining us electronically, and welcome to those of us in person today. It's nice to see people face to face. Jane, could you run through the apologies that you've received, please?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Bernadette Caffrey and Jill Curtis.
We have a hybrid meeting today, so we've got some colleagues joining us online, some colleagues in the room. Everybody in the room, we need to remember to press the red button to speak. Jane will remind us if we forget to do that. In the room, we'll just raise our hands normally, and if you're joining us electronically, raise your hands using the feature on your computer, please. We've got a packed agenda. Lots and lots of papers have been given in advance, so we're taking those that they have been read by all members. We're not expecting people presenting those today to go through those page by page, line by line. Just brief highlights, please, so we can keep the discussions as the main item on each of these papers that have been submitted. And so the first thing that we move on to then are the actions and the minutes from the previous meeting. So in terms of actions, number one, it was agreed Schools Forum would receive reports in September on the Nurture Hub, a report exploring how additional funding could accelerate practice, and an EHCP proposal for banding, which has been from the sort of task and finish group. We have got that on the agenda today. Another action was for Andrew Merry to discuss the proposed new formula for the high needs funding with Dawn Godfrey and Bernadette Caffrey. Andrew, is that something we're going to be discussing today?
Yeah, that's the HCP proposal as well for banding, the new banding proposals. And
Thank you.
Sorry, it was also, there was a paper as well on new funding proposals, so that was for early years. So I'm not sure whether the minutes have captured that quite right. But either way, I've discussed both with that Dawn and Bernadette are aware of the banding proposals, and I'm working on the early years proposals with that area of the council as well. So the action has been completed.
Andrew, we would find it quite difficult to hear what you were saying there. I think I got the gist of it. Jane's just left the room to try and turn the speakers up so we can hear what's being said. So if everyone can talk up, those who are joining us electronically. The third item was for Jane to send out the track changes version of the updated Schools Forum Constitution to members for their attention. And that's one of our items today. I'm going to pause at this point until Jane comes back in, because we do need to go through the minutes last meeting. So if we can just go through the page by page, please, and shout out if there are any issues in the document pack. This is agenda item 2, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11. Page 12. And page 13 is the actions that we've already gone through. So is the group happy to accept those as a true and accurate record of the meeting?
Minutes approved, Chair.
That then leads us on to item 3, which is the annual election of chair and vice chair. So Jane, I'm going to hand back to you at this point.
Thank you, Chair. Members were contacted and asked for any nominations for the new chair and vice chair positions for the next academic year. No nominations were received from other members, though I have received nominations from the current vice chair and the current chair for restanding. If members are happy for the vice chair and the chair to be re-voted in for the next academic year, please would you raise your hands? Thank you.
Item 4 then is the annual review of the Constitution and Rules of Conduct. This has been provided for us by Jill Curtis, who is not present. And this is an item for discussion and decision. Steve's let me know in advance there's one aspect of this that we need to have a quick discussion on. So I'll allow Steve to go first on that, and then anybody else that wishes to contribute subsequently. Steve.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point of reference on section 6.1. It talks about needing agreement from schools forum for 2 head teachers or 2 governors or 2 non-school members to hold the positions of chair and vice chair at the same time. So obviously, as we've just agreed that, I just think it's important that we formally record the forum's agreement, as 2 head teachers are now currently chair and vice chair.
If members approve of this, can they please raise their hands? Yes, that was yes.
Okay, any other people wishing to contribute to this item, please make yourself known. Okay, I shall move on. Thank you. The next item then is the finance update. So Andrew, handing over to you at this point.
Hi, can you all hear me okay? Yeah.
We could do with you really speaking up a little bit louder. Thank you, Andrew.
I've removed my headphones, so hopefully my mic, you can hear me a little bit better now. Yeah, okay, that's fine. The main point on the finance report, as per normal, is we're doing okay and spending to budget on all the other areas. The only area where we're planning overspend this year is in relation to the high needs block, which is currently forecasted at 311,000 overspend, which gives a total overspend on the high needs block of 1.5 million and a total overspend on the DSG, which means we're running at a deficit of 1.4 million. That's the main issue in the finance report. I have broken down the expenditure in the high needs block a little bit more detailed than what we have in the past. Hopefully you can see where we're spending our money a little bit better than what we have in the past and where we're investing in. But other than that, there isn't really any other updates from a finance point of view. Happy to take any comments or questions.
Anyone have any questions for Andrew? Please raise your hand. Peter.
Yeah, sorry, just a comment from me, and that's I sit on a couple of these forums, and I don't know one that doesn't have an overspend in the high needs block. So, so it's not a particular Rutland thing. It's the fact that there isn't enough money in the high needs block system, basically.
Okay, Andrew, was there anything else on item 5 that you need to contribute to us? Just want to check before we move on.
No, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Right, then we next have the SEND recovery plan. So Louise is online, I believe. Hand over to Louise at this point.
Jane, I've asked you to make a panelist. She's in attendance but not been made a panelist. Oh, here she is. Great.
Hello there. Sorry, I had some problems getting myself promoted to panelist. Apologies for the delay there. Yes, so there's a report. Ben, you mentioned, you know, it's quite an extensive report. I don't want to go through it in detail. I'll just pick out the key highlights if that's okay. So first of all, and there are some things that we need agreeing, and I've made those quite clear at the beginning of the report, if that's okay. So first of all, just to say, this work is continuing apace. We have recommissioned a number of contracts over the summer to make sure they're fit for purpose for us this year. Some of them we've enhanced, some of them we've slimmed down based on what we've learned in the last couple of years. We have more, for example, therapeutic input around counselling, etc., play therapy. And you know, our SEMH teachers continue to be linked to all of our schools. The panel arrangements have changed. You will remember that in June we were asked if we could change those arrangements to move us more in the direction we wanted to be moving into, which is to ensure that responses to children's needs could be speedier and it didn't go through a panel process. But actually, now that we have those kind of good connections to our SEMH teachers now through all of our primary schools and our secondary schools, that we could utilise a slightly different route for that. There was quite a long, there was a much more extensive paper in June that explained that, but thank you for approving that. And so instead of that, there'll now be there'll be an EIP review meeting, which includes all head teachers and SENCOs are welcome to attend that, and that will look at case studies and talk and help us to shape what happens here on out, and that's 3 times a year. The providers meetings continue. They're incredibly valuable in terms of bringing together what is inevitably a changing landscape of different practitioners who are involved in social, emotional, mental health type services, to make sure that we are utilising those services well, that we're not treading on toes, that we're using what we have the best possible way in terms of value, but also what makes sense to schools as well. And we have our new EP contract coming into play as well, so that there'll be a key partner in that arrangement. In fact, Rutland County Council have committed more money to make sure that those kind of strategic connections are a part of that contract. So that's really helpful. Right, what else do I want to pick out? Yeah, so we've been doing some really helpful collaborative engagement sessions with families over the past few months, and we have plans to do more of those over the next few months. And one of the things that came out, one of the areas that was discussed by families during the summer, up to the summer break, was whether the name Education Inclusion Partnership helped particularly families who are receiving interventions school side to understand what it was that was being offered, really. And through a session that we did with them, talking through what it was, they suggested a potential alternative name for it. Now, there are all sorts of complications once you start changing a name, but it was felt that the school support partnership might be more helpful for families in understanding what this is about, what this work in our SEND recovery work is about. So I wanted to bring to Schools Forum that as a possibility. Are we comfortable that we change that name? It would mean, to a certain extent, just in terms of colloquially, people understanding what we're talking about when we change it. But I'd like to ask for a decision on that as part of when I sum up at the end, if that's okay. I wanted to draw attention to the fact that I was able to report earlier in the year that permanent and fixed term exclusions were reducing, which is incredibly, it was one of the ways we can sort of identify quantitatively, if you like, what sort of impact the work that the Education Inclusion Partnership is having on the system, if you like. And the indicators at the beginning of the year were really encouraging. However, very unusually, they really changed, the picture changed towards the end of the year. So I just wanted to highlight that for Schools Forum. It may be that it's an anomaly, but there was a significant growth in a sort of concerning rise really in the final part of the year in terms of those indicators. The Mainstream Plus arrangements at Uppingham Community College have started. Had the pleasure of going to have a look at the arrangements there a week or so ago, and children seem to be settling in well to those. The idea of those facilities and the arrangements for teaching is that they support children with education, health and care plans who might otherwise have required unit or specialist provision, but actually can be supported in mainstream with different arrangements around their educational experience. So some of that's about space and how they're educated. Some of it's about the arrangements for teaching. Ben's actually here, so it'd be best fun to give you the detail on that. What else is it worth saying? So the direction of travel around our early years pathways work is progressing, working closely with RLT and Oakham and the Parks, thinking about what is the best way to organise our early years arrangements to get the best pathway and opportunities for children and families. And I highlight key projects and sort of risks and opportunities at the end of the report. Is it okay for me to go back? Oh, I'll mention the Delivering Better Value review. So I did, this has been mentioned a number of times, I think, over the course of the summer. We've been invited to be part of the second phase of Delivering Better Value arrangements for next year by the DFE. That means that they'll look closely at what we're doing to get control, if you like, of our budgetary situation around the high needs budget. And they'll underpin kind of the work we're doing. We hope they'll be reviewing what we're doing and working out whether or not there's anything else we can learn and put in place. So that's really helpful for us. I think that work starts, we expect in January. We've got quite a bit of work providing data for them in the next couple of 3 months. But that work we expect to kick off in January properly. So that's the first thing. Can I ask you to give me some guidance on whether you'd like to change the name of the Education Inclusion Partnership to the Schools Support Partnership, and whether there are any thoughts on that?
So I'm going to open that up to the group. Anybody want to make comments or ask Louise any questions about that name change?
Yeah, I think it's a really good idea, Louise, and I can see it would support parents. So I think, yeah, it's a great idea. And I think Fiona's nodding her head next to me as well.
Thank you, Sharon. So we've got 2 positive affirmations there for this name change. I'll give a couple more seconds for anybody else to put themselves forward for comments. Okay, let's take a vote on it then. Are we happy for this name change to go ahead? Show of hands, please, in support. Wonderful, thank you.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Louise, was there anything else that you wanted to add or any other decisions you wanted making?
No, thank you, that's really helpful. If there's any other questions based on the report.
Last chance for anyone to speak up. Questions for Louise? Louise, thank you for pulling that report together and for summarising it so concisely. That was great. Another good report that we're going to go through now, I think is going to come from Helen Chester on the EHCP proposal for banding. So I'll hand over to you at this point, Helen.
Thank you, Chair. As you'll know, at the Centre Summit last year, a working party was formed to look at the way that high needs funding is allocated in Rutland. And as part of that work, we were charged with, the working group were charged with looking at developing a different model, and we have come up with a banding matrix. So the group have come up with a 5-tier banded matrix that looks very clearly at what is expected from schools under element 2, and then focuses on the needs of children. So it is needs led. It's been tried and tested by Senkos. It's been approved by all of the working party as a model that works within schools. So that model's the 5-tier banding matrix. We know that no child is going to fit cleanly into any band, so it's going to be a best fit model that is proposed. And we're proposing that the current levels of funding in an EHCP will be transferred to the closest banding level in terms of its value in the first instance. So for the first year, this means that in a number of cases, children will be receiving additional funding to the funding that they're receiving this year. And you'll see from the work up in the paper around finances that by year 2 that will balance. So some children may receive more funding than they currently receive, and some children may receive slightly less, but overall it looks like it will balance itself out. And we looked at 1/3 of schools. So in year 1, there'll be an increase of 8% of funding, which will balance out by year 2. And as we see that flexibility of how funding is used, we hope to see that return to the previous funding levels. Within the matrix, where an EHCP is concerned, the proposal is that we would review the funding at each annual review. So using the matrix to identify the children's level of need, which will fluctuate over time. So it's recognising that needs increase, but may also decrease over time as the EHCP works. The big proposal that came from the working group is that banding levels will not be written into EHCPs. At present, the funding level of TA hours is written into an EHCP under the provision section. And in actual fact, that is putting it in as provision. So 25 hours one-to-one TA funding is being written in as provision. And that is being held by parents as being provision in addition to the provisions already in the EHCP. So we're proposing that that banding level isn't written into the EHCP, as it is a funding agreement between the local authority and the school as to how much high needs funding will accompany the child, and it isn't a provision that should be in the plan. We are also proposing that this model works for all high needs funding applications for non-EHCP related funding where additional support is required in school, and that a new high needs funding form will need to be created in partnership with the working group, incorporating that banding matrix as part of it if schools forum decide that they wish to approve the model today. So really it is, if there are any questions that anybody has, I'm willing to work on that, as I'm sure are the other members who have been part of that working group. But the recommendation to the group, to Schools Forum from the Working Party, is that we agree the new banding matrix, that it is adopted from the 1st of January 2023 for all new high needs funding applications and all new EHCPs, that we also adopt the proposed funding allocation for each band. So I know that there's been discussions around what the funding would look like, and again that's all gone through the working party. And we'd also like agreement that as we go through the annual review process, we'll switch the existing EHCPs to the banding funding, but we'll actually switch it to the process of removing that banding from the EHCP at the next annual review point. And that any existing high needs funding applications that may be in place would again be switched to the banding model at the next point of review or their reapplication. So it's a gradual process of moving it over. If that is agreed to start that from January, there will also be a couple of extra pieces of work that the working party will need to support on, which is the redesign of the high needs funding application and a big piece of communication with families to enable them to understand the benefit of the changes. And that needs to be a collaboration again with schools, with Senkos, through the EIP and through the Send and Inclusion Service to make sure that we get a very clear message out to families that the removal of the TA hours in their plans is not a removal of provision, it's removing the funding agreement with schools as a provision. And ongoing, we're going to have to work together on this one. There will be some glitches and adaptations that will need to be made. So I'd be proposing to re-evaluate the matrix at the end of the summer term after it's had 2 terms to implement. ready to make changes for the following September. There are also ideas there to look at how that matrix could be extended to early years and post 16 as well. So really it's just if anybody has any questions is the first part.
Thank you for that, Helen. I'm going to open it up to the group now. Anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to make? Yeah, Fiona.
It's a comment really, Helen. This has been a fantastic piece of work, and I think I speak for the 3 heads, 5 heads here, that it's what's needed, and that you're quite right when you say attaching hours and provision, it's unhelpful. So thank you for the tremendous input that you've put in, and again the working party.
I would like to echo that as well. It's been a brilliant piece of work and really well received, you know, with Senkos and head teachers. So thank you, Helen, for leading on that.
Steve. Helen, could I just check, you said that the banding won't be written into the plan at the next review, and that the banding would be agreed at the review. Is that what you said?
So the banding would form part of the discussion that we have with schools, rather than it forming part of an annual review process as to what hours are required. And my proposal would be that that is a discussion between the local authority and the schools. When parents are asking about the number of hours that children are entitled to, they are utilising that as an additional provision. Again, I'm more than open to suggestion, but the idea was that that would be taken outside of the annual review process as a discussion between the school and the local authority regarding the ongoing funding.
Okay, then my personal view on that is that that would need to happen before the review, because if we're trying to get parental buy-in and engagement, in my experience, there have been occasions where a review has been really successful and positive, and extra support might be needed, and it's been discussed and the parents are really on board, and then afterwards that support's not been agreed by the panel or whatever, and then that's what causes disharmony and aggro. So I think those conversations need to happen before, so that it can make the reviews really purposeful, particularly as this will, in my opinion, you know, live or die on the parents buying into it.
Again, if the group are happy with that as an approach, I can't see a reason not to build that in.
There's lots of nodding heads in the room here from what Steve just said there. And I think overall, I want to thank everybody that's contributed. A really, really well coordinated piece of work, which is absolutely essential. And it's really nice to see that all coming together in a really great report and proposal. So are the group happy to accept the proposal? There are 6 bullet pointed recommendations.
Apologies, Chair. Louise has her hand up.
Louise, I'm so sorry, I didn't see that up there.
No problem at all. It was really just it was only to reiterate the point that Steve made, really, and that we recognised right at the very beginning of this piece of work, actually through the summit, that this is just, if you like, this is the technical first half of the piece of work, and the second half is actually how we communicate this well, so that people understand what this is about, and it doesn't land wrongly. So yeah, we recognised right at the very beginning that was going to be a crucial part.
Thank you, Louise. So I'm going to ask for a vote here to take on these recommendations, these 6 bullet points that are in the report, and then the suggested next steps. We include Steve's point that these discussions happen before the review, and that we really focus on the communication to parents as one of the key aspects of making sure this is successful. Can I have a show of hands in support of this, please?
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
Okay, we'll move on, and I do need to apologise to Sharon at this point, and Louise, sorry, I skipped over your item, so we've missed out number 7, so we're going to go back for that. And Louise, are you taking the lead on this one?
Yes, I mean, Sharon, are you happy for me to make a start and ask you to pitch in? I can't see whether you're nodding or not. You're very small.
Yes, please do. That would be great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Oh, I can hear an echo now. Okay, so this report, I gave notice of this report actually in my June update. Sharon and I have been talking for a while over the last few months about what we might need to do to adjust the way that the arrangements for our nurture practice are set out. To really deal with some of the kind of unintended consequences in the system. You know, what might be possible really, because the nurture arrangements that we have in Rutland have been really incredibly, you know, they've just been fantastic actually, and I know we've had fantastic feedback previously from Schools Forum, so thank you for that. So thank you really to Sharon and her team for delivering it. But we commissioned initially, really based on a ballpark figure, we commissioned at about 100,000 what we thought would be outreach arrangements so that we can make sure that other schools learn how to do nurturing practice in the way that's set out by Nurture UK. This is an evidence-based programme, so we want to make sure we're implementing something which is evidence-based. Sharon and the team have been working really closely with the Education Inclusion Partnership, now the School Support Partnership team, to make sure that those two things are aligned, so that when Sharon's team are going to talk to schools in our locality about what they might do differently for children who might be displaying sort of emotional, social emotional mental health needs, but particularly around attachment and trauma, that they are actually closely working with the team. But we want to do more of that because we think that's where we'd get the best impact, if you like, from our nurture practice, is to do more of that kind of outreach work. But it's worth saying that on top of that, there's also places, as people will be aware, a small number of places for children who otherwise are going to drop out of our system. And they're really very closely guarded, because we don't want children to move to Edith Weston to have places, because what we've recognised in terms of the practice, and this was a risk we identified at the beginning, what we've recognised is that if children go to Edith Weston, even if it's meant to be for a short-term intervention to have their needs supported in-house, they often don't, in fact they never go back to their sending school, and that's not the purpose of the provision there. So we want to make sure that we sort of halt that. We want to invest more in the outreach arrangements, and so we've been talking to Sharon and the team about what they've learnt about our systems so far and what could make a bigger impact on that. Shall I carry on, Sharon?
Yes, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So what we'd like to propose to Schools Forum, and this is it's a significant ask, but what we'd like to, because we want to focus energy and align it better with the IP as well, School Support Partnership, we want to put further pressure, if you like, on the Dedicated Schools Grant on the high needs block by offering more resource from that nurture arrangement. So we're asking if we could uplift the contract price to 172,000. And I'm showing, I've listed at the back exactly how that's going to be spent. So what that will do is give more leadership capacity to do outreach at leadership level, more teaching capacity to do some of the in-house interventions that we need, and more cover in terms of some of the sort of TA time. It's very specialist work here that might need to be done with particular groups of children. We can see the impact it's had. So the work so far has supported 25 children. 15 of those have been through outreach. We'd like to do a lot more of that work aligned to the School Support Partnership. 10 of those children have been prevented from escalating out of our school system. And some of them have been diverted, as it were, away from special, particularly, I mean, it's predicated on diverting children away from special schools. We know that happens. It's probably happened for all of those children, actually. I'm guessing Helen would nod at this point if that was the case, because she knows all of these children, all of these situations. So yeah, and there's a list of which schools have benefited, if you like, from that outreach support, and also which schools have sent children where children haven't been able to continue where they are and they've moved into the nurture hub. So it's as simple as asking for that, really. I don't know whether you want to add something, Sharon, to that.
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Louise. I think it's really important to share that if we could do more outreach work to prevent the placements. We currently have 4 children accessing a placement. We're just about to have a 5th. And actually the staffing we need for that and the skills, it is taking all of the current budget and more, if I'm going to be really honest, just to maintain those placements. And I think one of the key points Louise has made, they're just not going back to other schools, which is then leaving us, we've had this conversation about the small schools and the number of EHCPs as well. But we also want to be able to provide the staff to support the children as they are transitioning, whether it be to whichever mainstream school it is. Some are coming to us when they've been permanently excluded, and that does make the whole decision of where's next even more challenging. But I think, yes, if we can get out and do more outreach, that would certainly be key. But I also do need to say we were really struggling last year to maintain what we have, because with 4 full-time placements, that's quite, we need a lot of staff and very, very skilled staff to do that. The team are doing a fantastic job, and we just kind of need that. But as you say, if we lose those children into specialists, I think the cost would be far greater for them as children and their families, as well as the financial burden as well for the local authority.
Can I ask the group for questions or comments to either Louise or Sharon? Steve?
Thanks, Chair. Just a kind of point to note, really. I mean, I think good SEND provision is expensive, so my vote would certainly be to increase to what's been offered there. But I would say, and I've come across this myself with our provisions at the parks and the DSP, and I think we still have it to a degree. I think there needs to be a better understanding across the sector, particularly in the primary, with colleagues about the purpose of it and what it does, because certainly hearing what you've said and reading the papers, my perception of what it was doing isn't what it does. So that's my misunderstanding. So I think perhaps we need, whilst we're talking about SEND and parents understanding so they're on board with it, I think we need a better understanding of head teachers across the purpose of it and what it's for, and I think that will help as well.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Can I respond to that, Louise? I think, and that's where perhaps we don't have heads meetings in the way that we used to, but perhaps we could offer some sort of session for head teachers to come and visit and have a look, and we can produce some sort of open event, so we can actually really clearly go through what we offer and how it works, and yeah, that would sound really good. So thank you, Steve. Yeah.
Might I say something as well?
Yes, we'll go to Louise, and then Peter's got his hand up.
Oh, sorry, Peter. I guess I'd just add to that. Part of the difficulty often with communicating what's being offered is that we've talked a lot about not wanting to promote the places, in a sense, because these places really are there as we often use those places because there really isn't any other option. It looks as if we're going to have to place a child perhaps in specialist independent, and so we haven't tended to offer people the chance to just come en masse and look at the places. It's more about the actual understanding, I think you're right, Steve, of what the sort of what Boxall can offer, in terms of tracking children's progress, helping people to understand how they can do that in their own schools, realistically. So yeah, I think just a carefully thought through strategy for making sure that the right information is circulating would be really helpful.
Yeah, I think possibly, Louise, because the whole school, we all have the nurture approach. So I think, visiting other classes, talking to other staff would probably be quite useful as well, because obviously it's a whole school ethos. And you're absolutely right, and perhaps a session to go through the Boxall and how it looks. So yeah, thank you.
Peter, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. Very much support the idea. Just a small question around the end of your presentation, really, around the quality of staffing. And And are you confident that you've got the quality of staffing to deliver all of this?
Thank you for that one. Yes, we have. I will say recruitment isn't as easy as we would like, because we do need the right people in place. Currently, yes, we have excellent staff. I think we do need to, it's our head of school who has taken on more leadership. So it's her role that we do need to find the right person for. But currently she is still carrying out that role. But yeah, the current group are amazing, and hopefully we will continue with successful recruitment.
Right at this stage, then I'm going to ask the group to take a vote on this additional funding. So if we are to accept the proposal of this additional money, can we raise our hands now, please, as a vote?
That's passed, Chair.
Okay, that takes us on to item 9 then, and Jill's not here to present this, but we have had the paper in advance, of course. This is Homes for Ukraine, and there was a meeting about this. Was it last week or the week before? Week before. So has anybody got any comments or questions on the paper put together by Jill?
Yeah, just really an observation. I think all education providers will be a little bit keen to make sure that the money is continuing to flow to schools, because of course, as the Ukraine conflict enters a different phase, there is of course the potential for some backtracking, possibly, from national government. And I think if we are at least kept up to date with things, because if the funding model does change in any way as a result of that, it's important that schools are made aware of it at the first opportunity.
Thank you, Carl. Any other comments or questions on that paper? Right, okay, we shall move on. Next is Early Years Working Group. So Catherine, I'm going to hand over to you for this 5-minute slot.
Thank you. The Early Years Working Party met on the 5th of September, so before the new price cap was introduced. Main topics for discussion were the cost of living crisis and the impact this was having on both the families attending settings and the settings themselves as bills continue to rise. As we're all aware, funding doesn't come anywhere near covering our current costs. New business models were discussed by managers. It was agreed that every business within this area will have to look at different strands of income. And it was suggested that we had some business management training, which Karen's looking into. Some settings have already closed, we're aware of that. And others have already started capping their funding places and diversifying their businesses. Sustainability remains viable according to the last survey, but as managers indicated, they have places but can't sell them because we don't have the staff to meet the ratios. One other topic of conversation was the holiday care. That was insufficient this year, and a working party has now been put together to look at that, to develop that for the next holidays. And that was basically it. Thank you.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Catherine?
Just to reiterate, I just think it is a real danger for the authority for Rutland, because early years solid, good, high quality early years education is so key to children's development and their future success. So I don't know what we can do to improve it, but I really do think it should be high on that agenda, because it starts. Yeah. It's the start of the journey, isn't it?
Yes, thank you for that. I mean, we are looking at different strands of income, but parents have no money to pay for things. It's as simple as that. And we know there's no more funding available. I mean, we have written to the MP. She has responded saying that she will support our claim for more funding, but we're not very high on the agenda. We know that.
Thank you, Catherine.
Okay.
Right, then item 11 is pupil place planning, and Jill has submitted a paper for this. ready to take comments or questions on that paper from the group? No discussion or decision required on this. So if everybody's happy with it and we're ready to move on. Okay, item 12, forward plan for 22-23. Can we review and approve the proposed forward plan? Any comments or questions on it? I'm going to take that as we all agree and are happy to go with this, although I've just seen Dawn put a hand up. So, Dawn.
Thank you. Sorry. Just in terms of the forward plan, we've referenced the Delivering Better Value programme a couple of times today and previously. As it's starting with us in earnest in January, I thought it might be worth putting on the forward plan for the March and the June agenda. I'm looking at the right forward plan. Yes. Just for, so March, we'll probably be in the middle of the kind of first phase of that programme. So it might just be useful for Schools Forum to get that feedback on kind of how it started and how it's going. And it may even be that the DFE team would want to come to present something or to kind of consult with Schools Forum. So if that could go on the forward plan, I think that might be very useful, both from a Schools Forum point of view, but also from a DFE programme point of view.
Thank you, Dawn, that's noted. And is there anybody else that would like to suggest any other items to be included within the forward plan for this year? With the additional money that we've approved to go to the Nurture project, what would be the normal review cycle with that? Is that at every Schools Forum we receive an update?
Normally, I think we'd receive an update before we go, when we do the review, and we'll go for, before we do the contract review, as it were. So we'll set a new contract based on that arrangement, and that will be a year's contract.
Would that be July, Louise?
In my view, it should be Christmas, given where we are. But
okay, yep.
Okay, thank you. Right, I've not received any other urgent business. Jane, have you?
I haven't been notified of any urgent business, Chair.
Okay, so just give anybody the opportunity to speak up. Right, thank you all for your time this afternoon. That was very quick, very efficient. We finished early. Have a good evening, everyone. I'll see you soon. Thank you.
Meeting closed at 4:47.